Have your fantasy teams been struggling this year? Or perhaps you've been doing pretty well but want to put yourself over the top? Then make sure to visit our friends over at Finish First Fantasy Advisors. They are the premier one-on-one consulting firm that specializes in providing you with expert support to help guide you to the championship. You will be matched with one of their expert advisors to provide you with the season-long insight for your redraft, dynasty, or DFS formats. Their advisors will contact you weekly to answer all of your questions and provide you the needed information to get to the next level. Set up a free 15-minute consultation by emailing them at info@finishfirstfantasy.com or by visiting them at www.finishfirstfantasy.com. That's www.finishfirstfantasy.com. Hello and welcome to another episode of the SkullKing Sports Fantasy Football Podcast, presented by Dr. Squatch Soaps. Get 20% off of orders of $20 or more at drsquatch.com when you use the promo code SKS20. Again, that is 20% off orders of $20 or more at drsquatch.com using the promo code SKS20 at checkout. My name is Ryan Scullard. I am your host, and it was not a great day for me in fantasy football today. So we're just going to throw that out there. I'll be honest, I did not give some of the best advice during my live stream this morning. I was not confident in certain players and with what they had done so far this year, and so I hesitated and told people to go with other people, and what do you know, guys like Amari Cooper did go off, DJ Chark did go off, Joe Mixon did go off, so it was one of those days for me. So just laying that out there. So my rankings probably took a hit. My standing in the Fantasy Pros accuracy contest probably took a little bit of a hit this week. So we'll see how I can bounce back, try to do a little bit better with the research and getting into the numbers and digging through some stuff to be a little more informed this next week, to be able to provide you guys with better advice. So no major announcements. Tonight we are going over our Kings and Stings. These are our best and worst performances of the week. We are going to do a little bit of a preview of both Monday Night Football games that are going to be tomorrow with the Kansas City. Well, if you're listening to this, it'll actually be today. With the Kansas City and New England game being moved from Sunday, when I'm recording this, to Monday night. So we'll do a little bit of a preview of the two games, including also, obviously, Atlanta and Green Bay. So that's what we've got on the docket for tonight. Tomorrow will be our waiver wire show, and then I believe going live on Wednesday. I'm still trying to figure out how I want to do that show. I don't know. I mean, if you guys, I would love feedback. If you guys could text us, or sorry, not text us. You guys can message us on Anchor. You can actually ask questions on Anchor if you wanted, that we could put into the show. That's anchor.fm. You can find our show. Look up SkullKing Sports Fantasy Football. You'll be able to find us. You can actually send us messages for us to listen to, or possibly, like I said, possibly even play on the show. So yeah, I'm trying to figure out how I want to do the next the episode that goes live on Wednesday. I'm thinking I may do a little DFS. I may because going through all the games, it felt heavy. It felt like it was too much. So I'm going to try to see if I can maybe kind of pare down some stuff, figure out some things that may help you guys out a little bit more, instead of just going over every game by game. So still working on that. Yeah, I think that's it. So why don't we go ahead and get moving with today's headlines?
Today's headlines.
All right, and today's headlines are brought to you by the Sleeper app. Sleeper has some positives and some negatives. All platforms do. one of the things I love about Sleeper is all the notifications that you get, because they are very much on top of getting the notifications out when something is tweeted from one of the major NFL insiders, things from the teams themselves. Sleeper is great when it comes to getting those kind of notifications. One of the things I don't like about it is when you're playing in a league on Sleeper, everyone sees those notifications because everyone gets the push notifications. So, no, but Sleeper is one of the better apps you're going to find for Dynasty Leagues. I personally don't like it for redraft. I prefer Yahoo for redraft. But if you're going to do a Dynasty League, the setup and everything they've got, the suite of tools that you can use for a Dynasty League on Sleeper is absolutely phenomenal. Plus, there's a whole bunch of groups and channels that you can join. The Fantasy Footballers have a channel on there. The Hateful Eight Fantasy Football Podcast has a channel on there where you can get in there and kind of get some extra advice from them. So, all right, let's get into the headlines. Starting with story number 1, Austin Eckler was seen post-game with crutches and a brace. And it looks like the actual injury is they're calling it a hyperextended knee and hamstring injury. So he is going to be missing some time. Looks like the MRI will be Monday morning. Expected to miss multiple weeks, which means Josh Kelly is going to move to being the 1A of the 1A 1B. I don't really like. Honestly, I don't like right now Kelly or Jackson. Kelly's been losing the ball a lot. He's had a couple fumbles in the first few games. I like the talent. He's dealing with some fumbling issues. So, although the fumble that he did get today wasn't completely his fault. When the handoff came. It was a little bit high into his chest and kind of bounced off his chest pad. So, So I mean, we'll see how it goes. But I think Kelly's probably the better of the two options available. Obviously, Justin Jackson is going to be available all over the place, so he's going to be a bit of a waiver wire guy to go after. But yeah, so we'll have to wait and see how long Austin Eckler will be out. Story number 2, O.J. Howard is likely out for the season. It looks like it is an Achilles injury. Everything I've seen from from Bruce Arians, all the little clippings from him, the various news sites all saying that it is likely that he is. When you say Achilles, it's probably ruptured and done for the season. So that could provide a little more work for Cameron Brate. We shall see. It could also provide a little more room for Gronkowski to do a little more work. We'll see. So, story number 3, Nick Chubb went out with a knee injury today. Again, this is another one we're going to have to wait and see. They don't believe it's serious, but we're going to have to wait for the MRI. If he goes down, obviously it's Kareem Hunt's backfield, and Kareem Hunt could find himself as a top 5 running back all over again. Although this year already through 3 games going into this week, he was already running back 11, so running back 12. So he's been really good, and then obviously he had a great game today. So Hunt could be in for a lot more work. Noah Fant, another thing, could miss some time with an ankle injury, according to Coach Fangio of the Denver Broncos. So, again, we may be looking. This is why, especially at tight end, there's going to be so many guys available all over the season. Production's going to be all over the place unless you have one of the top 3 guys. Unless you've got like Andrews, Kelsey, or Kittle, you are likely to you're likely to be streaming and just kind of moving around based on matchups. So, final couple things. There were 2 more. Obviously, there were 2 more positive tests for the Titans. Sunday morning, Week 5 versus the Bills is in jeopardy at this point. We'll see what this has to do. How this is going to affect the rest of the league. I know that I was hurting this week because of COVID. when I have a league, a single quarterback league, where my two quarterbacks are Cam Newton and Ryan Tannehill. And Tannehill I already knew about, and then Cam Newton happens. So it came down to where I had to trade for Nick Mullins, which that went really well, obviously. Getting pulled for C.J. Beathard for the last two possessions in the game in Sunday Night Football. So again, this is kind of it. You have to stay fluid with fantasy football. You cannot get too caught up in the fact that one team is, this is happening to one team, or so and so is getting injured. You have to stay fluid. You have to keep working with it. So there were no positive tests this morning for either New England or Kansas City. We'll have to watch to see what happens Monday morning. But as of right now, New England and Kansas City is on for the Monday Night Football game. So, all right. That is it for the headlines. We are going to now move into our Kings and Stings section. Obviously, this is, again, this does not have the performances from Monday Night Football. This is just Thursday through Sunday. But these are the top three, kind of a hockey-style 3 stars of the game or of the week at each position. And then we do 1, sometimes 2 busts. And with the bust, they have to be very highly owned. It's not like a guy that was a waiver wire pickup that a lot of people were expecting to do something. He's 50% owned and he ended up not doing anything. No, these are guys that I think all the ones that I've got today, the busts that I've picked, were all at least 90% owned. I think in one of them it was like 88, 89% owned. So that's kind of where we're at there. So starting off with the Kings and Stings, Dak Prescott, QB Kings, 38.28 points, number 1 quarterback this week, 502 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. Really, he did what he could. The Dallas defense just stinks. They're awful. And I know the injuries have been plaguing defenses all over the place. I get it. That's not Dak Prescott's fault. He is putting up a crap ton of points. But what did they say? I think they said over the last 3 games. They said it on Sunday Night Football tonight. Over the last 3 games, the defense has given up over 120 some odd points, 126 or something like that. So averaging over the last 3 games, 42 points given up a game. That's not sustainable. Quarterback number 2, after a rocky start and a pick 6, TB12, Mr. Tom Brady, finishes off the day with 33.46 points, throws for 369 yards, 5 touchdowns to go along with that 1 pick 6. So a good comeback for him as Tampa Bay comes back to beat the Justin Herbert-led Chargers. And a newcomer to the quarterback Kings for this season so far, Mr. Teddy Bridgewater, throwing for 276, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. But along with it, runs for 32 yards and a touchdown. Finishes off with 27.24 points for the week. Moving on to the running back Kings. I can't stand Joe Mixon, period. I'm going to say it. I owned him 1 season. There was 1 season where I had him on my roster, and that was his rookie year. I cannot stand this. So just a rant, because this is, we're going to throw this in. A rant because of what happened to me over the last couple years with Joe Mixon. Like I've said, I'm part of Fantasy Pros accuracy ranking competition, part of their across the industry. And I cannot tell you how many times over the last 3 years I would have based on matchups even, Joe Mixon would be in my top 15, top 12, top 10. Matchup would be great. I'd have him in my top 5. And he'd absolutely crap the bed. So what would I do? After 3 or 4 weeks in a row of it, what would I do? drop him down to, running back 15, running back 20. Just, and even today, I dropped him down. I had him down at running back 20 for my rankings this week. Because, everyone saying, but he's playing against the Jaguars. The Jaguars are middle of the road against the run. So it's not like they've been giving up massive amounts of yards, massive amounts of touchdowns. They've been okay. But for freaking Joe Mixon to do this, next week he's going to crap the bed again, I'll bet. But Joe Mixon, our running back number 1, there I'm done ranting, 39.1 points, 151 yards on the ground with 2 touchdowns, as well as 6 catches for 30 yards and a touchdown. I don't like you, Joe Mixon. Moving on, Dalvin Cook, 27.6 points, 130 yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground, 2 catches for 16 yards. Running back number 3, and a little bit of a flash of what he used to be able to do in what used to be San Diego, then became the LA Chargers. Mr. Melvin Gordon, 24.8 points, finished with 107 on the ground, 2 touchdowns, and 2 catches for 11 yards. Moving on to the wide receivers, Mr. Odell Beckham Jr. finally is having an electric game. If we kind of put it into perspective with what he'd been doing so far on the year, Odell Beckham Jr. wide receiver 41 on the season. And then he puts up a massive game. So I get the coverage was soft because it was Dallas. They give up a crap ton of points. But I think we expected a little bit more out of Odell Beckham Jr. this year. Well, some expected more out of Odell Beckham Jr. I think that this is an anomaly, period. I think it's an anomaly. I don't think he's going to regularly put up these kind of numbers because Kevin Stefanski wants to run everything through the run game. We saw that last year when he was with Minnesota, and we've seen it so far this year in the beginning of the year with Chubb and Hunt. So, but OBJ, 35.9 points, 73 rushing yards and a touchdown, as well as 5 receptions for 81 yards and 2 TDs. Number 2, this is one of the guys I didn't trust this week. People will call me crazy, but I did not trust Amari Cooper to put up 27.4 points. Now, it helps that he was targeted 16 times. Goes for 12 catches, 134 yards, a touchdown, and a 2-point conversion. I didn't trust him. And for those that I told to start a couple of guys over Amari Cooper, I apologize. I'm sorry. I didn't trust him. DJ Chark, another guy I didn't trust, but he was also coming off injury. Finishes number 3, 25.5 points, 8 catches, 95 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Moving on to the tight end kings, number 1, Mr. Primetime George Kittle, 32.6 points as a tight end, 15 catches, 183 yards, and a touchdown. He also had an 8-yard rush. I saw a stat tonight from NFL that he tied the record for the most receptions while having a perfect receiving record, so 15 of 15. The most receptions, tying Christian McCaffrey, who did it a year ago, I believe, or maybe 2. 15 of 15, the most ever since the creation of the stat of targets. So, big game for George Kittle. Number 2, Mark Andrews, 19.2 points, 3 catches for 57 yards and 2 touchdowns. So not a whole lot of volume, but definitely made the most out of them. And number 3, Mr. Dalton Schultz, 15.2 points, 4 catches, 72 yards, and a TD against Cleveland. So, big day for those guys. Now we get into our QB sting, or our stings, just in general. And so, with the stings, again, these are guys that are highly owned. I think the guy that's the least owned of all these is our number 1 guy, Mr. Jared Goff. Because he had the most disappointing quarterback game, I think, of someone that, is regularly started. 11.7 points. Not what you were expecting from a guy who was going up against the New York Giants defense. Only threw for 200 yards and a touchdown. So again, not a great performance from him. Again, just very, very interesting that that was all that he was able to do against the Giants today. Number 2, another guy that I was not high on this year, that I just was not seeing the reason to put so much draft stock in him. Kenyon Drake, 3.5 points today, 35 yards on 13 carries. That was it. Not used in the passing game. Very, very interesting, the usage that he has gotten so far this year. It has not been nearly what it was last year. That is just the offensive line just is not seeming to open up holes this year for Kenyon Drake like they did last year. So this is definitely something we will be watching over the next couple of weeks to see if this is a continuing horrible trend moving forward. Our wide receiver sting. This is a guy, Mr. Tyler Lockett, 4.9 points, 2 catches for 39 yards on 4 targets. This is something that happens with Tyler Lockett. And in games like today, for the Seattle Seahawks, there are just times when some receivers just don't get a whole lot of work. They'll find one guy that they target a whole bunch. The Russ will target a whole bunch, and it kind of moves around. And in some games, it's everything's flowing nice, and they'll just it's everyone's getting a share of the work. That just wasn't the case. And Tyler Lockett seems to be that one guy that tends to miss out when that happens. And the beneficiary is usually David Moore, like it was today. So Tyler Lockett, that was a big ouch. So, and then moving on to the tight ends, we've got 2 of them, just because 2 of them that were very highly owned that did nothing. Mr. Zach Ertz, 4.9 points. And the only reason he got 4.9 points is because he had a 2-point conversion. Otherwise, it was 4 catches for 9 yards out of him today. And the other tight end sting, Tyler Higbee, 3.6 points. He was on one of those guys that was on the bad end of Jared Goff's day today. 3 receptions for 21 yards. So that is that. Real quickly, we want to look at the Monday night preview. The 2 games that are going on. We're going to start off with New England and Kansas City. Brian Hoyer gets the start, which is kind of dumbfounding to me that it's not Jarrett Stidham. But obviously Hoyer has shown the leadership. I think this is a game that they really want to make sure that they are as competitive as possible in. So Hoyer gets the start. I don't like Hoyer. I don't like him for this game. Honestly, with Hoyer at the start, I think that elevates obviously I think it's gonna single out Edelman and James White, in my opinion. I don't think it's going to do a whole lot for anyone else. Maybe it elevates Michelle because they try to really establish a run game. Kansas City is middle of the road against both quarterbacks and running backs. We don't talk about what they do against tight ends because New England doesn't utilize tight ends. Ryan Izzo, I think, is their only one. But I mean, just to look at it, just to be safe, they're middle of the road, 15th. So again, middle of the road against tight ends. So it could provide a little bit of a game for Ryan Izzo, or whoever else they have at tight end in New England. All I know is that they have not been getting any work with Cam Newton. As far as Kansas City goes, I like the matchup for Mahomes and for the wide receivers. The New England Patriots are 19th in terms of giving up fantasy points to the to quarterbacks. I think Mahomes, you can't really put anything against him anyways. No matter who he's going up against, you're going to start him. I was somewhat hesitant. I didn't like the matchup, but I still think that Clyde Edwards-Helaire can put up some points in this game. New England has had games where they've given up a lot of yards. So I still think that Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I have him, I wanted to say like a running back 10 or 12 for this week. And then I'm starting Hill. Obviously, you're going to start Hill. Watkins could be in for a pretty good game. Although it also could be McCole Hardman, who tends to every once in a while work out of the slot. So, and then Travis Kelce also is a must start. Moving on to the Atlanta versus Green Bay game. This is where things get a little dicey, because obviously, in terms of the wide receivers, this is where things just are so hazy. You've got Julio Jones and Ridley both dealing with hamstring injuries. Russell Gage was dealing with a concussion. Looks like he's expected to play. But we still don't know on Julio. We don't know on Calvin Ridley. And we don't know on Davante Adams. And so if for Atlanta it comes down to Russell Gage, it's going to be Russell Gage and Hayden Hurst. And I don't know who else they have to play wide receiver. We'll see what Gurley and Hill can do. But I think that Ryan is a decent enough start for this game. Again, Green Bay, middle of the road against running back, or middle of the road against quarterbacks, middle of the road against running backs, against wide receivers. They've given up a lot to running backs, so again, maybe Gurley and Hill can get something going. I'm interested to look and see what Brian Hill can continue to do in this offense. To see, it's been looking like he has a little more burst than Gurley. So, and the Green Bay looks like they're top 10, top 12 or so against the tight end. So Hayden Hurst may be getting a little locked up as well. As far as Green Bay goes, Rodgers should go off in this game. Atlanta gives up the most points to quarterbacks. They give up the fourth most points to wide receivers and the second most points to tight ends. So if Davante Adams misses this game, it's going to be MVS and Robert Tonyan. I really think that Adams missing is the biggest thing for Robert Tonyan. If Adams plays this game, I don't see a whole lot of work for Robert Tonyan. I think Rodgers is going to stick with Adams, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and then toss it out of the backfield to Aaron Jones. I think that is the most likely scenario. Could be wrong, but that is what I see as the most likely scenario. So Rodgers should be in for a good game. Aaron Jones, you're gonna play him. You're not gonna sit him. I want to say right now he's running back number 3 or 4. No, number 2. Sorry, running back number 2. So yeah, you're not sitting Aaron Jones. So MVS should be in for a good game. I picked him up in a couple leagues, and again, Robert Tonyan, I think that his volume is going to be based on whether or not Davante Adams plays. So, all right, that is it for this episode. I want to thank you guys for taking the time to listen to the SkullKing Sports Fantasy Football Podcast. I hope that you guys have the guys go off that you need in order to get your wins for this week. And then tomorrow we will move into the waiver wire show, figuring out who is needed where. Thank you guys so much for listening. Again, my name is Ryan Skulrer. This has been the SkullKing Sports Fantasy Football Podcast, and we'll talk to you guys later. Hey, SkullKing Nation. Thank you for listening to the SkullKing Football Podcast. Did you like this episode? If so, be sure to go to iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and YouTube to subscribe. Also, please leave us a rating and reviews to let us know how we can better help you rule your leagues.